From the 22 News Plus studio, this is 22 News in Focus with Patrick Berry.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's edition of InFocus. I am your host, Patrick Berry. Joining me across the desk today is Lhea Destromp. She is a rehabilitation counselor with the Massachusetts Department of Developmental Services. And if you're anything like me, you've never heard of the Mass DDS as it's referred to, which is why Lhea is here today. Lhea, thanks for joining me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Explain to us, what is the DDS?
Okay, so the Department of Developmental Services is a service through the Commonwealth of Massachusetts that's in place to provide individuals with developmental and intellectual disabilities, as well as autism spectrum disorder and acquired brain injuries and a full range of disabilities, with the supports that are necessary to help them live their most choice-filled and independent lives.
So this being a state agency, do you have local independent partners that you work with? Or does everybody kind of come through you, like the employers and the people with developmental disabilities?
So that's a great question. And it depends a lot on what the supports look like.
Okay.
So there are a number of contracted vendors throughout the state that work with the Department of Developmental Services to provide a range of supports and services to a range of individuals and families. If we were to take a look at the types of supports and services that my agency offers, which is Regional Employment Services, and we are an internal provider of the Department of Developmental Services, somewhat unique. We provide supports for folks who are looking to access competitive integrated employment, which means a job that you apply for through the same process as anybody else. You are interviewing, and then you are going through a rigorous selection process where you may or may not receive an offer of employment.
So this isn't giving people jobs. This is helping them along in their job search?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, nobody is given a job. This is very much a matriculated process where people are working on resolving obstacles to stability and employment, and at the same time developing their own skill sets.
So what are some of those obstacles that some people may be facing?
So the obstacles of employment are universal, regardless
Okay.
of disability.
Okay.
Some of these things are around our health that can determine sustainability. Some of these things are around our transportation or our access to the world around us, because
It's universal.
you got it. There's any number of factors, including what level of support do I have?
Fascinating. So who do you work with? Do you work with the individuals? Do you work with potential employers? Do you work with both?
We work with all of the stakeholders.
Okay.
So that's everybody from the individual that we're serving right in front of us, and the vision that is leading our plan is always created by that person. But then the stakeholders that we link arms with are people like their family members, their potential employers, their past employers, or members of staff within their other provider care teams.
Now, are there specific age groups that you and your group are working with? Or is it anybody really over the age of 18, any adult?
Anybody. Yeah,
Okay.
it's any age range. What I will say is that supporting folks in their journey as early as possible is so important, especially for folks who have benefits like Social Security, because for so many people, there's what's called the cliff effect, and it's a real
Right. Right.
fear of loss of benefits and subsidies that significantly impacts their willingness to embark in their employment journey. So there are certain subsidies that we can leverage and we can support people in leveraging. For instance, the student earned income exclusion. So
I've never heard of that.
not many people have. And I think if more people heard about it, there would be a lot less fear around entering employment, and we could really be reaching for the ideal outcomes of people feeling less fear around employment and more empowerment.
So you're helping the potential employees understand and navigate the world around them so that they're better equipped to land a job.
Absolutely. And at the same time, because you can't change what you do until you change what you know,
Right.
right? We're continuing to have conversations with the family members who might be nervous about how the income will impact the household budget and benefits. We're also having conversations with employers about how they can best accommodate and support their newfound employees.
Interesting. So, as part of your role, I guess rephrase the question. What does your typical day look like? Are you or is no typical day?
I love that question. There really is no typical day. I am very fortunate that I get to work with people and connect with people and listen to people and help them solve their problems. My favorite day is a day when I'm having a conversation with somebody who's telling me they have this thing in front of them that they just can't do. And don't you understand I can't do this? And I let them tell me all about their can't. And then when they're done, I remind them of all the times that I've actually seen them do that thing in action. It's just that they're being asked to do it in a different environment or in a test format. And in
Okay.
fact, I'm reflecting on an actual conversation that I had with a gentleman who was telling me, I can't remember all of these things that I need to know to be a UPS driver. And I had to push back and say, quite the contrary. There have been a number of times that you've been in my passenger seat and corrected my driving.
Oh, there you go.
And he's an amazing UPS driver.
And UPS, I have to imagine, is just one of the many, many companies you work with.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. We are up on our first commercial break. We will be right back after this.
This is 22 News in Focus with Patrick Berry. This is 22 News in Focus with Patrick Berry.
Welcome back, everyone, to today's edition of In Focus. Across the desk from me is Lhea Destromp. She is with the Department of Developmental Services. Lhea, thank you again for giving me some of your time. I appreciate it. So earlier we talked just generally what the organization does. Let's dive into a little bit more now about the placement, the people, the businesses, starting with the people. When I think of people with disabilities, it's a spectrum. I mean, I might not know that you have a disability, and yet there might be somebody with a very visible disability, wheelchair, cane, whatever it might be. Who do you work with, or do you work with the spectrum?
We work with a full range of people.
Okay.
So within the Department of Developmental Services, we are specifically working with folks who are impacted with an intellectual or cognitive or developmental disability or autism spectrum disorder or an acquired brain injury. So in those cases, that is a factor that is a part of the eligibility for the services. That being said, there are a range of supports out there for folks with, for instance, a mobility impairment.
Okay. So is there, for lack of a better description, I know I'm using the wrong terminology here, a clearinghouse to determine who can use your services? Is there like medical documentation that says this person has this condition and then you accept it? Or can anybody just walk in and say, I have a developmental disability, I need your help?
So there is an eligibility
Okay.
process and an application process for the Department of Developmental Services. And that is not the department that I work in. So I
Okay.
don't know all of those steps,
But
but I
there
do know
is-
that
There is some level of clarifying what somebody's developmental issues are so that they can transition over to working with you.
Well, and so the thing is, depending on what somebody's level of need is, their service coordinator, who they're going to work with
Oh, okay.
within the Department of Developmental Services, is going to help them assess what level of support they're going to need. And that's also going to be in direct alignment with their vision for what their best life will look like. So for somebody who may want to have an employment journey, right? They are envisioning their life including having a competitively placed job. Then if
then
there
that's where you get involved.
That is exactly. So there's a referral process for
Okay.
that, but there might be some steps along the way, or there might be some other additional supports that
Okay.
person needs, depending on where they're at in their journey.
So they may need housing support. They may need employment support. So that one-on-one contact, that person then determines who the client then goes see.
Exactly.
From an employment standpoint, Lhea, I have a potential client for you.
We have a whole team.
Okay.
Exactly. So that service coordinator is building a whole team
Wow.
around supporting each individual person and in supporting them reaching their vision. So for instance, just how we were talking about obstacles to employment and stability, if somebody is struggling in their ongoing stability in their home, whether it's time management or whether it's following a routine or a schedule, and they're struggling in that particular area of their life, they will not as likely be successful in employment sustainably.
Right.
So when they have a support, if they live alone, they could have what's called an independent support, or if they live with family, they could have family supports.
So let me ask you, how important is it to our communities that people with developmental problems get this help? Find housing, find employment. How important is that to the folks in the communities we live in?
Well, people with disabilities represent a third of our population. That's correct, 30%. That's before we ever take into account anybody's family members, friends, loved ones, right? So and we are looking at the workforce itself being made up of 40% of individuals that identify as having a disability. Now, that's not intellectual or cognitive specific, but a disability at large. But we're talking about not only a large chunk of our communities, but if we want to talk about business, we're also talking about a large part of the marketplace.
Right.
So really, it's critical to communities because these are our neighbors. These are the people next to us that everybody deserves the feeling of belonging that comes along with, whether it's employment, whether it's being a part of a community group or a civic group, right? Everybody wants to be able to not just have a place at the table. It's not enough to have a place at the table. It's that you have a contribution and that you have a place for your contribution and that it's valued. And that's the truth. Each one of us is learner and teacher, and each one of us can place value.
Yeah. It's interesting. As you're telling me this, what's running through my head is I'm calculating numbers. I'm a nerd like that. But theoretically, if there's 150,000 people who live in Springfield, and I don't think theoretically, I think it's probably a pretty close number.
That is close.
50,000 of those people fall into that bucket. A third. That is amazing. I had no idea the statistics about it.
Right. And then when we think about that and we think about how that impacts so many of the other pieces of our community. When we think about how it impacts wellness, how it impacts our employment rates, how, and if we also examine how there are so many factors that feed into employment when we look at, for instance, transportation. That's a critical piece. So with the PVTA recently making transportation free for this past year and then this year forward, this is huge for employment outcomes.
That's a game changer for people to be able to attend their jobs as needed at the hours required.
It's massive, not only for accessibility to the community, for accessibility to employment, but also when you're on your employment journey, you need to be able to explore. You need to be able to be exposed to different environments and different opportunities and different jobs, because you might think something is ideal for you, but then when you're there, it's bigger or louder or busier than you wanted for you.
So we talk about the opportunities. Are these all low-paying entry-level jobs, or does it, again, I feel like I'm teeing you up with simple questions, or does it run the gamut of from entry-level to managers and so forth?
Well, let me tell you, I support a range of folks. I support a young woman who makes $15 an hour in her first position of employment, And while she loves spending her paycheck, the value has nothing to do with the number that keeps going up in her bank account,
Okay.
right? It has everything to do with the confidence that she feels and the empowerment of being out in the community herself. Similarly, I support some folks who have a higher pay rate than I do, and who work for some of our schools and who are influencing our young minds.
Interesting. You touch on a very important part because it's not necessarily what the paycheck number is. It's, and think about any of us, that feeling of participating. You know, sometimes it's just being out and about, socializing at work, interacting with the public, having a life with meaning. I get up in the morning, I go do something that contributes to society. So I think it's more than just the paycheck. Am I wrong?
100%. No, you've nailed it. And in fact, I had a conversation last week where we were talking about points of progress and what the win was. And for me, the greatest win for a gentleman wasn't that he was continuing to be employed. It's that he was telling us that on the days that he's not working, he has the desire to be out in the world.
There you go.
That's pretty exciting because that tells me I feel like I'm a part of the world. I have value in the world. And
Right.
it all goes back to let me have my
Better mental health, better physical health, and so forth. We are up on our second commercial break. We will be right back with more. So stay with us.
This is 22 News in Focus with Patrick Berry. This is 22 News in Focus with Patrick Berry.
Welcome back, everyone. Today we are talking about the Massachusetts Department of Developmental Services, and across the desk from me today is one of their rehabilitation counselors, Lhea Destromp. Thank you, Lhea, for joining me. I greatly appreciate your time. Earlier in today's show, we talked a little bit about what DDS does, and then most recently we were talking about your clients, who you work with, those folks who are looking for work. Let's shift now to the employer side of it.
Mm-hmm.
Who in your organization finds the employers? Is it you? Do you have a team of people that go out to, up and down the Pioneer Valley, Route 91 corridor, Turnpike, whichever corridor you're looking at, to find the companies and you kind of pitch them what you do? Who does that? Do you do that?
So yes, I do that. And also I do work with a team. So we have a great job developer on our team right now. And he absolutely does pound the pavement. And he also does some more intentional job development. For instance, when somebody is telling him they have a specific interest, he'll go out and really try to carve that pathway forward for them.
Interesting. So if a client comes through that, I'm making this up, they want to do something with woodworking, and you don't currently have an employer that's in the woodworking field, that gentleman will go out and find somebody, try and marry up the potential employee and the potential employer.
That's exactly right, because it's all about making an informed choice. So we might think we really like the idea of woodworking, but we want to go in and we want to observe. We want to have that exposure. We want to have that experience. We want to have an informational interview where we get to talk to 1, 2, or 3 people that do that job. We want to know about their lifestyle. We want to know about the perks and the things that make your day not the best, right? And all of those things will help people make more informed decisions and then hopefully make some connections.
As you describe that, I think of the way I have spoken to college and high school students in the past about internships. And I always, because I've been in the media business for 35 years, people, Westfield State students, AIC, you pick your college, local college. They'll come through here, they'll do tours, they'll say, I want to be in this. And I go, you know what? Internships are not only finding out what you want to do, it's also finding out what you don't want to do. So you may be, hey, I'm Patrick, I want to do what you're doing. And then you come in here and do it for a couple of weeks or a summer and you realize that's awful. So it sounds like it's the same idea.
That is right there, the heart of informed choice. And really, we need to learn not only by gathering information so that we can make our best choices, but also through the trial and error of learning what is for and not for us.
So who or what are, if you could talk about them, some of the businesses and industries you're working with?
Sure, absolutely. So, one of the bigger businesses that we've worked with is MGM.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
they've been a really powerful thought partner, and especially with leveraging some of the subsidies that are eligible to folks that are employees. And then we've also Big Y has been a major employer, especially for folks who are just looking to start their employment journey, and quite honestly, people that are looking to have lasting employment journeys as well. We had a gentleman who just had actually two gentlemen who just had their 10-year pin ceremonies. One of them is continuing his career and looks forward to his 20-year pin. Another one is looking forward to retirement this January. So
Very good.
yeah. And the thing that I will say about I could sit here and name employers endlessly. Um, but just like how we're looking to build relationships forward with businesses
Mhm.
intentionally on behalf of folks who have specific interests, we're also trying to encourage businesses to look at what roles they have and what needs they have, because we'd really like to start encouraging businesses to lean into some of the different tax incentives that are available.
So there are advantages for companies to utilize DDS services
Well,
and your clients.
not just DDS services. It's not
Okay.
exclusive to folks with DDS service. It's more around disability employment.
Okay.
So, for instance, you may or may not have heard of the federal tax incentive, the Work Opportunity Tax Credit.
No.
Okay, not many people have. So that's a federal tax credit that provides a rate of reimbursement to an employer who retains an individual with a disability in their employ. And that's a rate of about 30%. So if we're thinking, that's right.
Wow.
And then if you are not a 501c3, because there are some restrictions around that, but then you could also go in and you could take the Massachusetts Disabled Employee Tax Credit, similarly around a 30% rate of return.
Really?
Yeah. So now it's paying to retain employees with disabilities. But here's the thing, that's not the real value. Just like how we talked about the paycheck.
It sounds great, but
It sounds so great. But just like how the paycheck isn't really the value
yeah.
to the employee, there's so much more. The same thing here, because what you're getting is an employee with longevity.
Right.
Somebody who wants to stick with you and wants to belong to your workforce. And you're getting somebody from a class of people who has one of the lowest rates of workers' compensation claims, which right? That's always
Interesting.
great as
Yeah.
well.
So most importantly, because we're getting late on time, how do people get in touch with you? If it's a maybe it's a person or family member watching this right now, or somebody at a company, they want to take advantage of the programs. How do they do that?
So if they're already enrolled with the Department of Developmental Services, they want to contact their service coordinator.
Okay.
And that's really any time that your vision of your best lived and most independent life shifts and changes, you always want to reach out to your service coordinator. And if you don't have a service coordinator and you're
Find one.
then you want to go through the eligibility process with the Department of Developmental Services, because you deserve to live your most independent and
Right.
choice-filled life.
Right. And for a business that wants to take advantage of this?
Well, they could reach out to me and I could give you my email address. We right now don't have a clear pathway for that.
Okay. But mass.gov is the website, right?
Mass.gov
Start there.
is the website, and they could absolutely, at the very least, look up the Massachusetts Disabled Employee Tax Credit to start with.
Fantastic. Lhea Destromp, I want to thank you so very much for educating me and our viewers about what you do. And you're doing great work here in Western Mass. So thank you so very much for educating me on it.
Thank you for your interest.
Good seeing you. Thank you.
This is 22 News in Focus with Patrick Berry.